According to a new report, the word freedom is racist. And people that want to be free are racist, even if those people are multiracial and want all people to be free. The bloody racists. Hello there, you 6 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me on this voyage to truth and freedom. A voyage of complexity and inclusion. A voyage of diversity and unity together. Turn on the notification bell right now and subscribe to this channel so the algorithm can't be used against us. We make great content every day and I want you to see it all. Like this story. Have you seen that the word freedom is now being repackaged as racist at a time that the Democrat Party is becoming increasingly elitist and using subjects like diversity to mask lobbying and corporate interests? Just to let you know where I stand right from the very top, for me, freedom means your right as an individual to be the person that God or the universe intended you to be. Beyond culture, beyond religious orthodoxy, beyond race, your right to be you, your right to your freedom, not your right to tell other people what to do from whatever perspective. And I believe in your freedom of expression, whether that's on the right or the left. As long as your freedom of expression doesn't involve oppressing others, I believe in your freedom. Just to make that absolutely clear from the top. Now let's see how language is being manipulated to grant more power to already powerful establishments and to prevent dissent. Those are two vital jobs. Undermine and smear dissenters and ossify centralized power. Check this out from a CBC article last year. As demonstrations against COVID-19 restrictions continue across Canada, the word freedom is on the lips and placards of many protesters. Yeah, why could that be? Almost like they want freedom and feel like their freedom's being shut down by a raft of new laws that have come from a centralized authority that no one voted for. Almost as if there was an attempt to apply an emergency act illegitimately. Often associated with protests and rallies in the United States, the term has taken hold among protesters who are part of the freedom convoy. For many, freedom is a malleable term that's open to interpretation. All words are open to interpretation. You can start breaking down words. You know, misinformation, malinformation, disinformation. Where did those words come from? What do they mean? Who's misinformation? Is there such a thing as objective meaning for words? We're in a sort of the territory of post-modernity and post-structuralism now, but I would argue that this is a bad faith argument. That, for example, those Canadian truckers, when talking about freedom, and most people now when they're talking about freedom, mean this: I want to be left alone. I want to be left alone by the government, and more importantly, by centralized, globalist organizations that have never been elected anyway. That's what freedom means. To see the word freedom bandied about as part of these protests points to a broader circulation of what Elizabeth Anker calls violent forms of freedom. We're just tied together violent freedom. By the way, if anyone said, I want to be free, I want freedom, and I asked, oh, what kind of freedom do you want? Freedom to be horrible and racist and to persecute people. Oh no, that's not freedom. I'm not backing that. Let me be clear. Let me use language deliberately and specifically. But if people say, by freedom, I want to live as I am. I want to be free from government intervention. I don't want to live in a corporatized world where there is no democracy, where I can't leave my house, where I can't work at my job, then I would advocate for that freedom. Similarly, freedom to express yourself however you want to be spoken to using language that suits you and your identity. Cool. Freedom is an absolute concept as far as I'm concerned, and this is a nefarious argument that's being used to shut down legitimate protest by working people. This is a trend that's been happening for the last 30 or 40 years. There is no representation of ordinary people in countries like Canada, the United States of America, presumably France, presumably elsewhere. I know for sure in my country, the United Kingdom, because the parties that used to be about representing ordinary people, what used to be regarded as the left, have become increasingly professional, increasingly dominated by the same financial, corporate and military interests that have always been associated with a particular brand of politics. Let me know if you disagree on the left. I'm referring to Cheney, Wolfowitz, old school Rand, think tanks, let's go to war and make a profit parties are now both political parties in America, for example. And in my country, the UK, both parties represent ultimately elitist interests and will not stand up for the rights of ordinary people against centralized, globalist, corporatist interests. But you might disagree. And using your freedom, you can do that in the chat, in the comments below. Freedom is a slippery concept, said Anchor. Yeah, in the wrong hands it is, but in the right hands, freedom means you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, we'll come together and cooperate where necessary, which could be quite a lot in coming years. Because a lot of people think, and I'd have to include myself here, that these arguments around supporting diversity are often actually a mask to underwrite and advance corporate interests. And we've got a fascinating example of that exact thing coming right up. Because diversity is important. Respecting people's identity, culture, religion, race, those are important things. That is part of freedom. freedom. And anyone that denies that, any aspect of it, I'm not in the argument with you. I stand with anyone that's standing up for their freedom. But also, working class people of any colour that are trucking across Canada, they want freedom too. Yeah, they should have it. Farmers in Sri Lanka, they want freedom. Yeah. Farmers in India, yeah. Farmers in Germany, the Netherlands. Have you noticed that working people across the world are starting to be negatively affected by centralist, globalist, corporatist interests, and there is no movement to represent them? Why is it that there are now no parties that represent the interests of ordinary people? Here's an article about an interesting demographic shift that could help explain that. The rise of college-educated Democrats. In the last 15 years, the Democratic Party coalition has undergone a dramatic demographic change. The white share of the party are far more likely to be college-educated than in the past. In 2020, for the first time on record, the college-educated white share, 27% of the Democrats, exceeded that of non-college educated whites, 25%. Those with a college education tend to be wealthier and have higher socio-economic status than those without, but they also tend to be more socially liberal and more likely to prioritise post-material moral concerns over kitchen table issues. Essentially what that's saying is that the Democrat Party has now become a party that's more interested in postulating rather than dealing with economic inequality that affects, guess who's more affected than any other group by economic inequality? Oh, the very people that you claim to care so much about. So ultimately there's been a cultural and demographic shift within the Democratic Party that means that they're no longer interested in addressing inequality. If you don't have a political party that's addressing inequality, and I mean economic and social inequality, then what you'll get is a cry, a void, a need for those concerns to be addressed, for those needs to be met. The Democrat Party aren't going to do it. The Republican Party ain't going to do it. You're just going to end up with demagoguery, pedagogy, and rhetoric around those subjects with no one making meaningful moves to help ordinary Americans, ordinary Canadians, ordinary people from all over the world. That's where I start to believe that we have more in common with one another than we do with the centralised systems, whether they're corporate or governmental, that prevent these kind of conversations or political movements taking place. Let me know what you think about that. Perhaps one of the reasons is they're more interested in symbolic displays of helping people than actually getting on and helping people. They have become masters of finding ways of pretending to address those issues while actually carrying on with business as usual. Look at this example. Christina Antelo, a corporate lobbyist known for her reach within the Democratic Party, held court last month at a gala where her clients and other lobbyists rubbed shoulders with lawmakers and congressional staff. Such a scene would be familiar to anyone who has spent significant time on Capitol Hill. Lobbyists host parties and fundraisers on a nightly basis in order to forge connections with policymakers, gather political intelligence, and nudge politicians into actions that benefit their clients. But this time, the influence effort was branded as a righteous celebration of racial progress, exploiting the cultural emphasis of liberal institutions to lobby on issues that have nothing to do with increasing diversity. So they're pretending that the event is about helping diversity, increasing diversity, supporting people that may not have conventionally been supported by the establishment, to just carry on with corporate lobbying. It was a night to welcome and celebrate diversity in the 118th Congress. The event was titled Diversity Across the Aisle, featuring a dozen sitting members of Congress and many staff members. The lobbying shop, Ferox Strategies, currently represents a range of interests, including Walmart, Reynolds American, and Eli Lilly and Company, pharmaceutical companies and retail giants with incredible profits and incredible power. Lobbying for what? More diversity? To end inequality? Economically? Racially? Culturally? Let's have a look. In one photograph from the event, Irene Bueno, a lobbyist for Pfizer and Comcast, huddles with staffers to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Well, to be fair to Pfizer, they don't care about race. They'll stick a vaccine in an arm of any colour. So this is an example, I would say, of illegitimate, demonstrative, but not authentic use of diversity with no intention of aiding or helping the necessary issues that ought be addressed, but simply to create lobbying opportunities. Ferox Strategies stands out as one of an emerging set of influence agents that have exploited the appetite for virtue signalling around diversity to push policies benefiting their clients. The firm often flaunts its access to identity-based organisations in Congress to leverage client relationships. Many people think, for example, that ESGs that the WEF recommend are not about helping the environment, simply are about ensuring that establishment power has new ways to hold on to that power, new ways to appear to be addressing problems, while really it's business as usual. Let me know in the comments and chat. Do you think that these groups genuinely care about diversity, genuinely care about helping people that are disadvantaged either economically or because of long-standing cultural issues, or do you think they care about increasing the profits of Walmart, Pfizer, Comcast, Eli Lilly? Let me know in the chat. In its message to clients sent after the event, Ferox bragged about using the diversity as a way to ingratiate its corporate clients with Democratic leaders. Ferox clients, Walmart, Alexion, and Waste Management joined a who's who of corporate sponsors to generously celebrate the most diverse Congress ever, the message noted. How diverse is it when it's contributing to a massive wealth transfer of $5 trillion during the pandemic? Those wealth transfers do not diversify wealth and opportunity. They consolidate it and concentrate it. And events like this distract us from that fact. The invitation for the event included the LGBT Congressional Staff Association, the Black Women's Congressional Alliance, the Congressional Asian Pacific American Staff Association, and other identity-based professional societies for Capitol Hill staff. The largest race-based congressional caucuses each have sister non-profit groups that are funded and led by corporate lobbyists. Obviously, they're simply exploiting an opportunity to continue with their agenda as they have always done. I believe the issues that they're pretending to care about are important issues, and if these issues were correctly addressed, along with all inequality, most notably economic inequality, you would see real change in society. Real change in society means diminishing the potential for the powerful to continue to operate within systems that always prefer their desired outcomes. That change can never be allowed. The system will always happily make gestures. The system will always happily fund jamborees and galas that don't change anything and provide opportunities for Walmart. What we need is legitimate change, legitimate alliance, legitimate care and love that looks beyond identity and cares truly and authentically about all of our freedom. The advisory board to the CHCI, for instance, features representatives from JP Morgan Chase & Co., MasterCard, ExxonMobil, Apple, Airbnb, DaVita, Toyota, Reynolds American, Microsoft, and New York Life Insurance, among other interests. Those kind of corporations with that kind of power do not want radical reorganization of society, do not want radical reorganization of profit, do not want the disempowered empowered. What they want is the appearance of change, business as usual. Last month, Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Xavier Becerra, appeared with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus to swear in its first-year class of 9 new members. The event featured live music and a message from Jeffries. But before Becerra could administer the oath, Marco Davis, the president of the CHCI, paused the program to thank the sponsors of the swearing-in ceremony, including Genentech, Google, Amgen, Walgreens, and Target. We must have equality between Google, Amgen, Walgreens, and Target. Are we not all the same? Do we not all need iPhones? Do we not all want Walmart to succeed at any cost, paying people the minimum amount possible, extracting as much profit from America, ensuring through lobbying that democracy becomes an empty, hollow shell? And if in order to maintain this appearance of a system that meaningfully represents people, once in a while we have to promote a person who looks a bit different from most powerful people, by God, we'll do it. Now here's some people that look a bit different from most powerful people, but ultimately their elevation, temporary, will not make any difference to the interests of Walgreens, Apple. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. Walgreens, Walmart. Damn it, we must build a better, more profitable world. He then handed the microphone to Omar Vargas, the head lobbyist for General Motors. At General Motors, we do not discriminate against anybody. And on occasion, when knowing there was something wrong with our vehicles, when it was discovered the callback cost was more expensive than the insurance payouts, we just let those people blow up and die. That is the kind of ethics we want. Here are some people of a variety of colors and identities who we would let blow up if we could make money from it. Now please enjoy the free bar, which is tax deductible. To be very honest with you tonight, said Vargas, General Motors and I are personally extremely committed to diversity in the public policy profession, as long as it makes no difference to profits. If you had a political party that genuinely cared about helping ordinary people, the kind of policies that you'd hear them talk about would be ending lobbying, not finding new novel ways to do it, stopping people in Congress owning stocks and shares in the companies that they regulate, stopping enormous expenditure on wars that ultimately end up in the hands of the military-industrial complex, and ensuring that big companies in energy, for example, couldn't extract enormous profits while saying that there's an energy crisis. Also, what they might do is this. They might stop the annual wage theft of $50 billion that happens to workers based on this story. Employers steal billions of dollars from workers every year by paying less than minimum wage, making employees work off the clock, not paying earned overtime, misclassifying workers as independent contractors, and more. While wage theft is all too common, it is rarely reported. As a result, stolen wages are rarely recovered, leaving already low-wage workers even poorer and bosses even richer. That is the kind of thing that, if addressed, would make a meaningful difference to the interests of ordinary people and would negatively impact the interests of powerful institutions, whether they are corporate or governmental. So when people talking about that freedom is a dubious term, what they're attempting to do is prevent galvanization, prevent people coming together of all races, of all colors, with a wide range of interests that all ultimately could sit within the framework of a popular movement where we all enjoy more freedom, where we all enjoy more access to resources, and more importantly, democracy. Sometimes life does involve suffering. Sometimes life does involve sacrifice. But what it needn't be about is increasing centralization, increasing institutional power, increasing surveillance and digital IDs, increasing bigotry and hatred of people of all hues and colors, turning people against one another in order to simply ensure that systems can continue to operate as they currently do for maximum profit and power without any concern for the impact it might have on you. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments in the chat. Have a look at either of these videos. They're also good. Turn on the notification bell and subscribe to the channel right now. Watch us every day on Rumble, where we have an opportunity to bring people together through free speech and absolute acceptance and love. Until then, stay free.